Hello, hi everybody, welcome to our first birthday. This is the House of PMO. I'm Lindsay Scott,
and Eileen Roden,
and we're the co-founders of House of PMO that started exactly a year ago. So we thought we'd just have a bit of fun, really, as you do on birthdays, especially when you're only 1 year old. You're still young enough to have fun at that age. Essentially, it was a year ago since we decided to start a brand new thing. To be fair, we'd already
done. There was a lot moving up there, wasn't there, to the kind of the 1 year. But it was really nice to actually kind of have it established as a formal organisation where we could launch to the rest of the world and kind of make sure everybody else was bought in and wants to join us on the journey.
Yeah, I mean, we'd already started PMO Flash Mob, but had been going for I think it was coming up to 7 years, and I think most people that obviously were working in PMO would have probably come across it or heard how ridiculous that sounds, but we still keep the PMO Flash Mob brand, because actually the whole idea was the Flash Mob is to just get people together and to get people talking and sharing and having a bit of fun and all that kind of good stuff. What it also really meant for us when we decided that now we need to change what we're doing was because we thought, well, we've got, it's going to sound really weird, but it's almost like we have to grow up a little bit, because we've been doing some great work with the community through PMO Flash Mob, and some of the stuff that was coming out of there, we wanted to reach a wider audience. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes having something called PMO Flash Mob perhaps doesn't sound as serious as it could be. But there is some really good stuff that came out of those 7 years, and people obviously have access to all of that kind of stuff through the House of PMO. So it's more than just a rebrand. We've gone from red to orange. Still like our red, though.
I think there was a lot of it about saying, actually, there's more we can do now for the community. Now we've demonstrated, as we've gone through and developed the competency framework, we'd really kind of worked out what we were about, what we could offer the industry, and how we could work with anybody and everybody who works in and around PMOs to actually kind of take the industry forward, really, where we had a big enough group of individuals who we were working with and talking to and were engaged to actually start saying, actually, this is now something that is, not something we kind of do as well as our day job. It actually can become our day job, and we can do more and contribute more to the profession.
Yeah. One of the grown-up things we had to do, first of all, was actually think about things like mission and vision. And that, in a lot of ways, helped us think about, well, what we're going to call this. Didn't want it to become something like PMO Institute, and it was something that still kind of kept a playful element to it, but still being quite
well. It still has a formal element to it. It has a serious element to it without being overly formal. Is kind of where we ended up with kind of the House of PMO.
Yeah.
So the whole kind of mission, kind of why we've got this set up, really hasn't changed from Flash Mob, is it? It's to provide somewhere where you can go to develop yourself. So the idea is that you can come and you can get some help and support from the House of PMO, the other members of the association. But what we always find is it just doesn't matter kind of where you are in your particular kind of professional career, where your PMO is in terms of setup. There's always somebody who can have a conversation with, who you can help and guide, because they're a couple of steps behind you in one particular aspect. So it really is about supporting individuals, providing support to other people, and really as a whole, which is where the competency framework, I think, has really started to make a difference, is actually kind of drive the organisation through. Drive the profession through, which kind of took us to our vision, really, which was about really kind of setting aside and having and being recognised a PMO, a global PMO profession, where, I suppose our ideal is when your children are sitting in the careers room and she says, I think there's a really good job that not a lot of people do. Perhaps you should think about working in the PMO. Really, that would be the kind of that's the measure, isn't it, in terms of kind of getting there. Yeah. And so over the year, we've we've increased the team. So I would hate you to think it's Lindsay and I who do all of this. We've got a great team who sits here at head office and help us behind the screen, quite literally behind the screens today, helping us kind of do all of this. And in terms of kind of the ethos that we've been kind of building up in the organisation, hopefully really it's a kind of a continuation of what we've what we've done through the whole of Flashmob. And really, when we start thinking about the values, the first value that we're really interested in is being kind of community focused. Is that the whole reason why we're set up is to provide things for the community, and provide opportunities for the community.
We never really shared values before, and I know some of you out there with your PMOs have done that whole piece where you've worked out what your mission is and what your vision is, and I'm sure you've got values as well. We're just going to share some of ours, and we hope they're not set in stone in its entirety, because we're a community-based membership organisation. It's important to us that the community can say to us, actually, we've forgotten about this, or what about that, or actually that one feels a bit and
there's definitely a session coming up, I think, where we kind of we share these. So and to be fair, we've been pondering about these for the last the last short time, and we're at a point now where we think we're in the right ballpark in terms of kind of what we're hoping for. But it would be nice to get the communities say in terms of how they feel, but very much community focused for the members.
No, absolutely. I mean, the other one obviously is that certainly for me as a individually, I'm learning all the time just by being around people like you that are talking to me about the good things you've been doing, the things that you're struggling with, and that gives me the ideas to find out more from you about where do we need to learn about this, and I think it's not just about for us at House of PMO looking for the new stuff. I think there's a lot to be done. I said the old only because it goes with new, but I think you know what I mean. It's about building on the foundational stuff that has been in and around PMOs for a number of years, but there's still a lot to do to help people who are might be more at the beginning of their PMO careers, or moving into this field for the first time.
I think we're continuously meeting new people as well, which gives us kind of more and more insight in terms of kind of what's happening in the real world, because what we don't want to be doing is kind of stuck in theory. So it really is about kind of bringing that kind of practical side, and we're continuing to learn by doing around the organisation.
The House of PMO is not about necessarily its training courses.
Absolutely not.
We obviously we've launched the qualifications. We'll talk about that in a sec, but it is more about you getting pockets of learning, the bite-sized stuff.
There's a whole knowledge management element, isn't it? It's kind of there's a whole lot of knowledge that's in people's heads because of what they do on a day-to-day basis, and it's really providing an environment where you can actually kind of share that knowledge. And I think kind of going on from that in terms of the very fact that it's kind of house and a home means that you can do some challenge, but we kind of do that in a safe space. So those of you who know me know that I have multiple children, and one of the great things that I enjoy is when they're all around the table having a good old kind of conversation and disagreeing with each other. And at the last conference, the last speaker we had was talking about actually it's the discussion and the disagreements that actually continue to do your learning, because you will start understanding other people's perspectives and how they've kind of gone through their journeys, and perhaps it may be slightly different, so you learn about kind of different contexts. So it's really interesting in terms of being able to kind of do that challenge, which reflects what we do in our day job from a PMO perspective. And it was only one of the recent events where we had the critical friend, and you would come back to me just in time. You say, well, so the critical friend, and so that kind of challenge about practicing and actually being challenged helps us to refine our thinking, our understanding of what we offer from a PMO perspective, kind of the services that we want to do and how we deliver them.
And I still want more of you to get involved in terms of challenging yourself by putting yourself out there, because like I said, for community focus, it's about learning, and we really want to be learning learning from each other. That means that sometimes you've got to get out of your comfort zone and actually think about, why not come and do something with us and share your story. And then that puts shudders down people, but
Some people.
sometimes you just got to challenge yourself, haven't you? The next one that we thought about was about ethically every day. What that means is it's really important to Eileen and I that we're running a membership organisation that has integrity, that we are running it ethically, that we're doing the right thing, not only for our members, but also for the people that are working for us, but also the kind of relationships that we have, as a one body to another. And that has to run all the way through what it is that we're doing. And it is, that I suppose in some ways that we're trusted to whatever we're doing around the stuff that we're putting out, that we're sharing with people, that it's good stuff. And it's going to, like I say, help individuals, help PMOs, help
organisations.
So a really important one for us.
And I think that kind of, if we behave in an ethical way, then it helps us kind of go, which is kind of on to the next kind of value really, which is about this whole connections, is that we don't want to set ourselves up as a silo of we are the PMO people, we sit over here in our little house and don't let live. We have an absolutely open door, and we allow people to make connections with each other, but we also want to make connections with professional bodies, but also with kind of different organisations around the world, and different professions. So we obviously kind of work very closely with project and program managers, but also business analysts. The kind of interesting talks at the moment in terms of becoming a much more data-driven PMO about building those kind of relationships with the IT department, of all people. But we also talk about, don't we, in terms of kind of from a PMO perspective, about building relationships with HR. Now, it's been really interesting about kind of going through developing the certification about HR, not just in terms of kind of resource management, but also about the learning and development side of HR. So this whole kind of connectors, building up kind of relationships and alliances and partnerships around the industry, but also encouraging you to be able to do that in your own organisation.
Outcome driven, it's obviously the target that really matters to us. So whatever it is that you might be doing, but equally it's about to enjoy that journey as we move towards those targets. And then prime examples, like remember the competency framework, it was a long journey. It took nearly 3 years, but we had a very clear purpose in mind. We had very clear, certainly when it comes to some of the more formal things that we're doing, like that publication, got things coming down the line over the next year, which again, very clear, more formal, outputs.
And I think we're very keen on it. We're not frightened of that journey. We recognise, that it's not going to be the quickest to get there. We know there's a lot of work involved, but we're all ready to pitch in, and it's been really great to have the community who are ready to pitch in with us, and can see where we're trying to get to.
Yeah. And finally, this one's, I suppose, a reflection on Eileen and I were talking, is that we're both pretty straightforward people. I don't know if that's because we come from the north of England.
Some of us are from the north.
I think.
Anything south of the River Tyne is near Midlands, Lindsay.
Yeah. So, but we're both from the north of England, which means that we have a propensity to perhaps say as it is. Yes. While being respectful, of course.
It reminds me with that. Remember the talk we did at Project Challenge one year, and we were talking about 7 habits of highly effective PMO managers, and we did say quite clearly that the role of the PMO managers and the PMO is to say to the organisation, when they say, "Does my bum look big in this?" As a PMO, you say, "Well, actually, yes, it bloody does." and really, it's about being able to have those really kind of quite plain conversations without being offensive, but actually say it how it is. So, and I think it very much links back to the challenge.
Yeah. So those are some of the values that we've been thinking about more recently, and I think it's a case of if you have any strong objections, we'd be more than happy to.
Well, I think there is definitely a session to kind of evolve and kind of to kind of solidify those and get them really established. And then it'll be interesting to see how we can make sure we really embed them across the whole organisation over the next kind of 12 to 18 months.
So here we are outside the house. This is, even got the orange door in line with, is this your house, Eileen?
Not quite.
What we're going to do is, let's welcome you in to the house. So here we are in a wonderful hallway, which is where, we'd hopefully that you're making the first steps to come and join us. One of the things that's been, obviously really important to us over the year is the ability to bring on members of all different levels, and have a substantial amount of free members. And what we really want to do this year is convert you to come and join us and see, and actually become a more fully fledged member and getting more involved with your profession.
So there's quite a big step, isn't there, from being a free member to being a paid member, in terms of what you have access to and what's available to you.
Yeah, and if you have a look on the screen there, you can see just how much wonderful stuff there is at that online and full member. Obviously, with the coming out of the pandemic, the online membership has been the one that's been predominantly picked up, because that's giving you access to all the virtual events that we've been doing, access to all the stuff that's available in the libraries, of which it goes back, I could say, over 7 years. If you consider that this year alone we've done over 35 events, various, including the conference, which gives you a whole load more stuff. Plus you'll see there that you have access to the competency framework online, allows you to do the assessments, but also gives you
that's a great benefit that I don't think an awful lot of the members are really using to its full extent, about kind of logging on to the system and actually doing your self-assessment and really taking a more structured look at your continuous professional development to kind of build your skills and capabilities.
Yeah, and as you'll see there is that the full membership is the one where it gives you more access, or access for the in-person events, which we're going to be starting again from September this year. Hopefully we put this pandemic behind us and we're ready to get back in, because that's what we do the best. That's what we enjoy the most. All those sessions that we do in person get recorded as well, so you get a real sense of what it's like to be in the room. But the most important bit, again, it comes back to this community thing, which is it's about being able to meet each other and to get to know each other, network, make new friends, all of that kind of good stuff.
But it'd be interesting, isn't it? We know now we've got, we had quite a big following last year when we created the House of PMO, and the following now is even greater. So it'd be really interesting to see where we can go to meet people.
Yes.
Over the next year.
Yeah.
Much as we love Manchester, it's nice to kind of go out sometimes and kind of meet the people. So
great. And so thank you very much for those members that have just renewed, because like I said, it's our first day. It's our first day into our second year, so renewals are coming in. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it and can't wait to meet up with you again really soon. But those are for the individual members. But what we've also seen and been really fortunate with is that we've had corporate members coming on board. These are the organisations that see the value in PMO, see the value in the people that are working for them, that are working in PMOs. One of the main things of when we get approached by organisations, they want to become corporate members, we talk to them about what it is that they're looking for. It tends to be it's the competency framework, and the access to that is really, really important for a lot of organisations, and both large and small, that they have a project management community that are probably well looked after, I think, in terms of development and things. So they've been really switched on by the fact that we've got something for people within the PMO. It's also that piece of being able to access the resources. Like I said, it's people see it as a kind of additional training resource. It's not a training course, but it's like, as Eileen said, it's that ability to to gain more knowledge around.
Well, we often talk about it being it's a self-help group, isn't it? Because you've got access to so many people across so many different industries. And we do have membership at administrator, analyst, manager and director level.
Yeah.
So, you know, we do have a mix across the piece. So it's nice to be able to connect there. And we do have some special events that, you know, kind of the corporate members get to first. You know, that kind of additional benefit, and just recognizing that they have like their little community of their own of PMOs as well. So again, we'll be continuing to develop the benefits to each of the membership groups as we continue on. They've certainly kind of grown from where we started, and we just gradually, as we're working through our backlog of things to be done, they're gradually being added to as well.
And you'll see there one of the you know, I think the benefits of both types of membership, both individuals and corporates, is you get some discounts on the conference, which is coming up just in a few weeks' time. So you get some great rates on that too. So the value of the membership is that having that additional. I mean, you know, I first started in this industry in the late 90s, and all I needed to remember is just trying to find stuff online.
I didn't say project or program management, but actually said PMO.
Well, you know, it just wasn't there, and I just like to think that now, when people are looking for help that's very specifically for their role within a PMO and not just in project management, you know, that it'll feel a lot easier for people to find the stuff they need and obviously utilize it in their jobs.
But I think the whole kind of this whole concept of, you know, kind of the membership, it's not just a one-way thing. You know, it isn't about the members coming in and kind of taking stuff out. You know, we said right at the very beginning, it was very much kind of community driven. And we do depend on really our members contributing, and we are all looking for contribution from the members and looking at kind of where the community can get involved in supporting some of the activities that we undertake. But also, you know, an awful lot of the members have things to share. So Lindsay was talking about, it's quite difficult. It was quite difficult to kind of find things on the screen, but actually it's actually now we're providing opportunities for people to actually kind of contribute to that kind of whole library. And one of the kind of the interesting kind of ideas, and you have to take credit for the idea, Lindsay, was the kind of the lodges that we have in the House of PMO. So we're not in the House of PMO alone. We have some lodges as well.
Yeah, true. We'll talk about the community engagement piece first, but in a second. But you know, one of the things that we're known for, and like I said, over the last year, we've been doing over 35 different events to. You know,
have I got the community events community before the events?
Yeah, it's fine. You know, it's yeah, absolutely fine. But
that's the joy of going live.
But you can see now some of the things that are coming up behind us are some of the things that we've been doing over the year. I don't think many members have realised that actually you can get in touch and tell us what you want to see. You know, that's the beauty of it. So if you are struggling with something, and you know, let us know. If we've got a great network of people that are able to we can draw on and get them to come and talk to us. So we've got all sorts of stuff that's been happening.
And I think a great example of that is where we're using the community development is the current Agile series.
Yes,
where actually we set aside 6 events. And when we started, we didn't know, in true Agile fashion, didn't know what the last session was going to be. Absolutely. And as each group has come, they've decided on what the next session is going to be based on the conversations. And so that kind of super series is being absolutely led on a month by month basis by what the delegates or what the attendees are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's been some of your first ones?
We see us still in the book club, you know, but that could always be kind of predicted. But do you know what's really interesting is we come in very open-minded to the books. We you know, nobody kind of sends us a book and say, can you push the book there? It really is things that kind of we've come across and thought are useful, and it's always good to kind of go back and see what other people kind of take from those books and how it can be applied. And this, you know, I'm always good for a book, so that's really pleased me. But I think the other one that I really enjoyed was because as we did the competency framework and some of the things and the conversations we had, people were really kind of challenging about whether the role of the PMO director really existed. And we actually managed to get somebody, Mitch Rollins, at the beginning of this year, who zoomed in from Australia, and we've got someone in from Australia this at lunchtime today.
Yeah.
He came in, and it wasn't his first PMO director job; it was about his third PMO director job, and it was just nice to have some of the kind of the work validated and for people to be able to ask questions about what that means. And I know certainly when I've spoken to a couple of people after that event, and one of the things Mitch was talking about is when he went in, and was really kind of challenging during the interview about making sure he was going to get the support to do what he needed to do. And actually there's a few people have reflected on that, and actually when they've gone and kind of tried to get things done in their organization, they've kind of got a little bit more backbone, because they actually recognize now that the role of the PMO manager, the PMO director, is seen to add value and is expected to be, you know, a contributing member.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the ones that I tend to do, which are the career hour ones, only because I mean, obviously it's where I've come from in terms of my background after leaving PMO into recruitment and careers advice and stuff like that. But it just means that you can just dip into some all sorts of different stuff, really. And I think the one that's coming up, I think it's next week, is about networking that everybody hates, but
everybody needs to do it.
What we're trying to do with their sessions is just give you something very different. Maybe, you know, I hope to spark, oh, that's a surprise, or oh, I'm not really, you know, never really come across that before. So they might feel like familiar themes, but the way that you tackle them might be a little different. And the other one, obviously, is the one that kind of takes a lot of my headspace, is a conference. We had the conference in November last year instead of June, because of the pandemic and all that kind of good stuff. And as much as it is really stressful pulling something like that together, and you know, I'm one of these people, Eileen, that I never used to have birthday parties when I was a kid. Not when I'm like little. I'm talking like in teenage years. Scared to death that nobody's going to turn up. That's why I never had.
Did you know that about the conference sometimes?
Well, yeah. So it's that kind of stress thing that you just like. As much as I love it on the day, and yes, it's a lot of hard work, but I just think the amount of stuff that comes out of that event is brilliant. And,
and last year, one of my, I got really kind of quite full and emotional when we stood up it was the first time we'd done a kind of a PMO Learn, kind of a full day of learning the day before the conference. And after the pandemic and everybody being at home and not mixed, to have 100 people in the same room, and the energy was amazing through that whole piece. So looking forward to PMO Learn this year as well, yes. Which is interesting, because one of the problems that somebody's got is resource management, which is one of the things we kind of covered last year. Yeah. And certainly some of the we'll be looking at again because it continues. And we've got some kind of, there's a great speaker from last year's conference on resource management, yes, as well, that we can go and pull on.
Yeah, so there is a method behind that agenda. You know, I do try to pick things
absolutely
like people are going to enjoy listening to.
Would it be community focused, Lindsay?
Indeed. There you go, living the values. So talking about the community, obviously the thing that is really important to us is that community engagement. And as Eileen said, that we, it's not just about us. I mean, I'll admit, I put my hands up. I don't know much about PMOs because I'm learning it all from everybody, because I haven't worked in the field for such a long time. I feel like I am, because just the sheer amount of stuff that I get from people in the community and things like that. The lodges, as Eileen said, are a way that we can bring in different voices, different faces, different levels of expertise, different specialisms that people have, and you want to continue to do more around that space. And I suppose in a lot of ways that feels like the erring more towards the kind of voluntary opportunities. It's not something that we have done in our first year. It was all much about the competency framework, the qualifications, getting things in place, getting the initial membership going and all that kind of good stuff. But we want to have more opportunities for, because we do get asked all the time, is there any way that I can contribute or get involved or get engaged in some way? And there are different things that people could be doing, but the lodges is the obvious way if you feel like you've got a specialism.
But that's quite a big commitment, isn't it?
It is.
And for people who, we do encourage whenever we have any webinar event, is that people put the cameras on and that they talk and contribute. So, even the smallest contribution to actually being in a webinar and actually saying something and talking about your experience is really just kind of the easiest step. And it's still quite fascinating about what used to happen, probably less so now, is we used to go out to, we'd go out into breakout rooms, and then the audience would drop slightly. All of the people who didn't want to be kind of exposed in a breakout room. And we would never do that, because we do make sure that people have got the opportunity to kind of be in a bigger group. But it's really nice to see people kind of then progress, because we've gone back to the PMO working from home sessions, which we now have once a month.
Yeah.
And again,
there's on Friday lunchtime.
There's one where there's opportunities there for you to do small 5-10 minute sections. And what we really want is for people to share their real life experiences of being in a PMO. So you can pick any topic at all, 10 slides in 10 minutes, you know the end time, and you can kind of manage that. And we're also, even though the conference is in June and we think you've just finalised the agenda, that's all done, but already starting to think about continuing events through the rest of this year, and also the conference next year. And I know some of the people that I've been coached have said this is going to be a great story when you've kind of gone through this and start thinking about actually kind of being able to share that.
Yeah, it's funny because nobody ever thinks they've got a story, but all I can say to you is talk to me, because I can find that the story that you it's not as obvious to you, but see me as a scout. I'm scouting to find really good stories, but there are more informal ways that you can get involved. We're always looking for things like, perhaps you've read a brilliant book, you want to do as a book review, or you've got an article in you, or actually you fancy that you can do, maybe listen to some of the sessions that we've done and want to write a piece that reflects on it. Anything like that where you're sharing in the written form. It doesn't have to be just about face-to-face in broadcast mode as well. So, but we do have more formal ways that we're wanting people to contribute. So we have that project, obviously, which is a competency framework. The next one is around services, PMO services, which has been out there for about 6 weeks now in terms of project, but we're going to give it a bit of a relaunch and a kick in the summer after Eileen did a session about pulling together PMO services. I think it's an interesting one for us in terms of a project, which was about new services or update to services and things like that.
And we recognise that we're never going to get, we can never get a complete list because the PMO is going to do everything. But this is really, again, it's about kind of building on the community. It's really helpful if we can kind of get some standard structure for kind of documenting services. And actually what it will provide for the members, it will provide a good kind of perhaps 70-80% fit, so they can then take that service and contextualize it for their organization. So we're going to continue to build that service library, and that'll be accessed through the website. So people, it won't, if we published it, it would be like the Encyclopedia Britannica by the time we kind of finished it. So there really is no plans to do kind of several volumes of that. It really is about kind of looking at kind of what we can have and how we can have that on the website, so you can kind of go in and search and say, well, kind of what are the services people offer around risk management, and what are the things that we need to know if we're going to be implementing those services and building those services in our organisation.
Yeah. One of the things obviously that's really important to us, and anything that we're trying to do in order to make sure that we're hitting the mark in terms of stuff that members need to know about, is to hear about your challenges and your problems. We do some of that, a little bit of that through the lodger pages, but actually we're wanting to do a lot more. But not only it allows us to try and address a specific problem, but then gives us some insights into perhaps what spawns out from that particular problem. So in true party style, we've got a bit of a problem, we're going into the kitchen for chat. So the PMO problem solved. You're probably thinking, well, it's supposed to be a birthday celebration. It is, and we're just kind of kicking off really some of the things that we want to do into the new year for us. And what we asked is if members have got a particular problem and they're happy to share it. What I really liked about this was you've got a problem, a challenge, or a confession. We'll take any of them, but the important thing is that they're anonymous. So we've actually got the first one as we were setting setting up this session today.
And just to be absolutely clear, going back to being kind of very straightforward, this isn't one we made up.
No, absolutely. We don't make anything up. We're
Exactly.
every day.
Every day, yes. So we put this out, and we didn't know whether somebody had actually kind of come back with this problem. Lo and behold, before we kind of turned our back,
we've actually got a couple, but this is the one that came in.
The one that kind of came up. So interesting in terms of kind of, you know, kind of distilling this kind of problem down. Now, we're not going to kind of read you, it's there on the screen for you to read, but actually kind of distilling it down, there's probably a number of things that we can see that are from that problem. So there's obviously a kind of that kind of interesting conversation about kind of being very kind of admin heavy. Interesting in terms of high staff turnover, which is an interesting one to think about. But, you know, kind of really try to understand what the main issue is about, whether we can kind of reduce the load or actually make it quicker. And we had a conversation, and typically what would happen and when we launched this as a kind of a service for the members of this kind of is dealing with the problems, we'll get other people to contribute. Today it's just kind of me and Lindsay working through that. And
unless you're on the session and you're in chat and you've got a burning desire to throw your
yes, absolutely. We have got in true style, we do have the chat box open. And typically we do have, you know, this is where not just kind of individuals can kind of help you, but also we've got a library of information. So this kind of particular problem, there was a number of things that kind of Lindsay and I were talking about in terms of the conversation we would have. It's always interesting where we find an admin heavy PMO in terms of kind of what the history is around that, about kind of where the need or the desire is to kind of for the PMO to do all of that admin, and whether we really understand the value that brings to the organisation, and whether we there are other things that would have more value. And I think from that, you know, kind of distilling that again, it's really hard when you've got your head down in the roots to kind of, or in the weeds, not in the roots, head down in the weeds, to actually kind of be able to lift yourself up and kind of have a thing. And we would do encourage that kind of PMO leads, PMO managers do always provide themselves with a sufficient time to constantly reflect on what is it the PMO is doing and who are we doing it for, and then really start thinking around how do we demonstrate value. And if there is perceived value to the admin, then then actually that might be the right thing to do for our organisation.
Well, you know, we had a session at the conference that opened up the conference in November, which was pretty unique. We're never probably going to see the likes of it again, but it was a team behind the vaccination programme for the UK, and they were very administration heavy. But you know what? That's what we needed. That's what senior execs needed. It's what everybody around them needed. So, you know, we've done a lot of sessions. The one that springs to mind is the few that you've done around PMO services, talk specifically about this. You know, are we sure about the organisation? Actually, you know, what is it that they really want? We could have been doing this administration stuff for months and years, and we're not actually looked and seen whether this is still a requirement. Really, it's a classic, isn't it, that people do always produce all these reports and none of them get looked at. So it's like, why are we doing what we're doing? But I loved your when you were saying about dropping balls.
Yes, and one of the things that I always say, you know, if you're in a position where you really haven't got any headspace, then we do have to recognise that the likelihood is you're going to have to drop a ball, and the real skill is to drop the rubber balls and not the glass balls. So we talked about that, but we also talked about, you know, kind of there's been a great move in the last kind of, I would say the last kind of 6 to 12 to 18 months around recognition that potentially is always going to stay part of the PMO role, but there are ways to make it quicker.
Yes.
So in terms of automating, and it's lovely to have some input there off chat about actually they've resolved some of their issues with voice recognition software in terms of kind of minute taking and what have you. And we've done that in our PMO managers lunch. We've done the same thing. And certainly in terms of robotic process automation, we've got a tool specialist as a lodger, but we've also got a number of kind of talks we've done in terms of how to take those first steps in automating some of that whole kind of cut and paste and kind of creating reports on a regular basis. So
I would say also about certainly something like the high staff turnover aspect to this one. I don't know if you remember, Eileen, that when we were doing in-person events, which we're going to be coming back and doing again, we had this session called House of Genius, which was perfect for this kind of thing, where we had a PMO volunteer who gave the problem to an audience of people. And essentially the idea was is that you got a piece of advice back from every single person. And I seem to remember that one was also about high staff turnover. So even though, you know, for some people, it's like, actually, I don't think I can add much more to what's been given. Everybody in that room also benefits, because I think even though this question might not be very specific to your individual person circumstances, there'll be an element of it. And that's what we like to do with the problem ones, is get more people sharing their answers to that. That's how we all learn. So we're going to be seeing more of those, and hopefully we'll be taking it on the road again, and doing again like the House of Genius type ideas, but we'll get people sharing in a more open forum.
So there's lots to look forward to. We haven't finished work yet, have we?
No.
Not by a long chalk.
I think
so
it's about the journey. It's never going to get to a destination. I mean, we'll have some outcomes along the way.
We do, but it is about enjoying that journey. And again, you know, we've already got a number of things in the backlog. You know, certainly kind of my focus for the next few weeks is to get the final certification out. So we've got administrator, analyst. The manager is now with APNG, which will be launched in the next couple of weeks. And then behind the scenes, what we're doing is getting the director certification ready. So that will be coming up, which it will be, that's been a labour of love to kind of to get that through as well, in terms of kind of moving that forward. So other things that are going ahead, well, we've obviously got the conference coming up.
Yes.
4 weeks today. 4 weeks.
Yeah, but for us, this year is just being able to not only come back after the pandemic, but also to spread it out a little bit, the joy. So we'll be in Scotland for the first time. So that's.
I'm really looking forward to kind of going up to Scotland. Yeah. Certainly when we had the face-to-face flash mobs. Yeah. So you know, Scotland were really engaged, and it's really nice that they're the first kind of alternative to London, where we can go back and do that kind of second conference. Yeah, we're doing some more work on the resources. That's, I mean, just the number of events we're doing now has kind of drastically increased than when we were doing them physically. I mean, there is some advantages in there of doing some kind of virtually. They're sometimes kind of much more easy. Logistics are much easier. Yeah. Sometimes, but there's a whole raft of information that is continuing. Yeah.
I think I think the main one on the resource side of it is that we get asked a lot about if PMO specific templates. So we're not talking about the project management ones, of which I know there's a lot of people out there. You can find a lot of this stuff online.
So things like business cases and
all of that kind of stuff,
etc.
But it's the specific PMO ones. So, for example, if you're creating a PMO roadmap, or if you're creating a PMO charter,
or metrics and measures, and
all of those kind of things. So that's going to be the first focus in terms of giving a raft of templating type stuff. So that's going to be the first project around resources. If we're expanding the publications, you'll hear more about that in the next couple of months.
Yes.
More work around the website, got a lot more stuff on the backlog. But again, what's really important to us is that those things on the backlog can get pushed down at any time, because actually members have really asked for something. And what we're finding as well is that when corporate members come on board, we get a lot more insights into, actually, it would be really good if you could have X and Y. So, you know, that's what we're going to do more of, is, you know, open the doors, open our ears, so we can hear what it is that you want to see us do.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting as we kind of go forward, and you know, the competency framework is becoming very well established. But it'd be nice, you know, to kind of to start certainly within the in the website, start kind of leading people towards kind of areas where they can support their continuous professional development. So I think it's definitely time for kind of go back and visit. So, conscious of the time,
yes,
and no party is right. Oh, without some busy stuff, right? Now, so I can't remember the last time I actually kind of was given in charge. Oh, look at that. classy birds we are. Look at that. House of PMO mugs to have our fizzy
Come
stuff
get these
in
at the conference.
at lunchtime. So yes, I'm not sure the last time I was in charge of taking the cork
They
out
expect you
to blow. Well, I'm probably not one of the. I knock the camera off. If we suddenly go black, right, it's because it's gone on the camera. So happy birthday, everybody! Because it's not just our birthday; it's your birthday too. Oh, yeah, it goes. It's going to go. Way! Happy birthday! So I hope you're having something, perhaps not quite as fizzy as what we're having. Yes, and of course, not only do we have to have some fizzy stuff, when the birthday song comes on, look at this birthday cake as well, no expense paid. Happy birthday, everybody! Let's go out. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Right then. See you all at the conference.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Take care.